keeping "O Canada," the national anthem. I love it. I think it's great. Keep it. But it'll be for the state, one of our greatest states.
Okay, so Trump took Venezuela, now he wants Greenland, and now he wants Canada as well. But what would happen if America did take Canada? What would happen to us? What would your life look like? Well, as much as Canadians want to shit all over America, here's what's gonna happen. Our unemployment is 6.8%. That's incredibly higher. America is 4.4, way better. So naturally, our economy is gonna improve as soon as we merge with the strongest country on planet Earth. Next up, our dollar is shit. Like the worst it's been in decades. Now, Trump's already said, maybe jokingly, that if he did take Canada, he would honor dollar for dollar. That means if you had 100,000 Canadian dollars in your bank account, it would immediately, overnight, become 100,000 USD. You would now have the strongest currency on planet Earth. Healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. This is the one where all the Canadians get stuck on. Well, here's our healthcare, and here's how it's doing. Yeah, it's free healthcare. Yeah, but you're probably gonna die waiting in the emergency room. But your taxes are gonna go from 54% plus down to like 25. That is, if you move to a good state like Florida, Texas, or Georgia. Now, I don't know about you, but economically speaking and financially speaking, which everybody cares about, this merger would be amazing. Now, it's never gonna happen. I know, but that doesn't mean it can't happen for you. I had a business in Canada renovating properties. We bought and sold over 150 properties. I had 13 employees in-house. I shut it all down, moved the business to the US, and I got my visa for my entire family, and we're moving down to Florida as I make this video in 2 days. Yeah, no more Canadian taxes, no more 50% shit, and this is just gonna be my everyday life all the time.
Yeah, folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and if you're watching me for the first time, please consider subscribing, like my video, and share my video, because here is where we break the real truth that most of the people are very afraid to talk about. So folks, without wasting much time, imagine waking up one morning and hearing the president of your neighboring country say that your entire nation will be better off if it simply become part of his country. Think about that for a while. That is essentially the argument Donald Trump has repeatedly made about Canada. Trump has called Canada a potential 51st state and has argued that Canadians will benefit from lower taxes, greater security than it is right now, and other advantages under the United States. But here's the question nobody should ignore. What if Canadians don't want the deal? What about it? If the people refuse to sign the deal, that they won't join Canada as the 51st state in the US, because Canada is not an empty piece of land waiting to be claimed. It is a sovereign country with its own government, its own history, and its own culture, and millions of people who have built an identity that is distinctly Canadian. And if you ask me, that's where this entire conversation becomes interesting. So folks, let's watch the video about Donald Trump wanting Canada to be the 51st state, and we'll meet after the video. But folks, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like my video, and without wasting much time, let's get after it.
To my American followers, in Canada, we are talking a lot about how it turns out Trump is very serious about his desire to annex Canada. And I know that Americans aren't really hearing much about this because it is not something that Americans are taking seriously. But Canadians are. And Canadians feel like Americans don't care. They feel very upset. They're very hurt, of course, because we're close allies, we're neighbors. And when the government says these things and they don't see Americans speaking against it, it hurts them. Now I know Americans, y'all got a lot going on. Canada is able to kind of focus on this annexing threat as a huge crisis for them, because it is. But you've got 1,000 different crises going on. That being said, these are your neighbors, your allies, and a lot of you are looking to them for a way to get out. So if you have a platform, if you have a following, speak about this and speak about how you're standing with Canadians and not against them, and how this is doing so much damage to not only Americans as like a global brand, but to Americans individually as people who exist in this world alongside other people who are looking to other countries as a way to possibly escape a very scary, very bad situation. So don't stay silent on this one. Talk about it. Let your Canadian followers, let your Canadian friends and neighbors know that you are standing with them and Trump's a dumbass.
All right, Canada, we need to talk because Trump and his followers think that we should be theirs. And no, we're not talking about a trade war or a bad reality show. This is full-on annexation talk.
Annexation means one country absorbs another. And the U.S., they've done it before. Hawaii, Puerto Rico, parts of Mexico. Why wouldn't they do it again? And some voices are eyeing Canada like it's prime real estate just waiting to be claimed.
Think about it. We've got the world's largest freshwater reserve, massive oil reserves, Arctic shipping lanes, and most importantly, the critical minerals that they desperately want. To them, we're an all-you-can-take buffet of natural resources.
But annexation isn't just about tanks and invasions. It happens through economic control, political influence, and making Canada so desperate that one day just poof, we become the 51st state.
So we need to fight back. We need to buy Canadian, travel within Canada, and make our voices heard. Canada will remain strong, proud, and free. And remember, Canada isn't an expansion pack for America. We're a sovereign nation, and we plan to stay that way.
So to those who think Canadians are just waiting to be the 51st state, think again. The majority of Canada doesn't want to be part of the USA, and Canada is not up for grabs. We'll fight for that, politically, economically, and if it ever came to that, for real.
America doesn't know. America doesn't know the same thing that Canada is hearing. Yeah, Canada is preparing for war.
Hey, I knew that Donald was going to use the Super Bowl to drop some crazy information and get a lot of attention, but I didn't think he would use it to announce that he's serious about taking over Canada. That's right, if we can't get him to knock this off, we are about to enter a full war with Canada. For a while now, Donnie has been joking about Canada becoming the 51st state, and we all know that when he's joking, he's only like kind of joking and actually testing the waters, but I honestly was wrong. I thought we had at least a month or two before this started being put on the table. In classic All Eyes on Me Donnie, he waited until today to air the interview during the Super Bowl pre-show in which he declared that he was serious about wanting Canada to become the 51st state. They asked him whether his talks of annexing Canada is a real thing, and he replied, yeah, it is. And then, of course, to feed his followers, he made up some misinformation about how we somehow lose $200 billion a year on Canada, which, of course, the U.S. is not subsidizing Canada. Because if that was true, why would we want to take over somewhere that's losing that much money? That's not a good investment. Well, Canada is rich in natural resources, more so than the U.S., and we actually get a lot of them from there. And it has now been officially released that Justin Trudeau is preparing people for what's to come here.
We have major breaking news right now. Donald Trump joked in a meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that he would annex Canada, making it America's 51st state if Canada essentially did not comply with Donald Trump's demands over the tariffs. Donald Trump recently had dinner at Mar-a-Lago with Prime Minister Trudeau after threatening Canada with 25% tariffs on all goods that the United States imports from Canada. And at this dinner, they were talking about the tariffs, and they were talking about what Canada will do, essentially, to modify its practices on the border. And Donald Trump essentially said, if you don't change what you're doing, we should just make Canada the 51st state. This comes after Donald Trump and his team started talking about possibly using a soft invasion in Mexico, a soft invasion that Claudia Sheinbaum, the Mexican president, quickly shot back and denied would ever be okay to Mexico. Folks, this is what you wanted when you voted for him, and now you're finding out. Comment below your thoughts, spread the word, and follow along for all the news.
We have some breaking news. Donald Trump just posted 2 maps on social media where Canada is part of the United States. He's still doing this. First of all, Donald Trump posted this, where Canada and the United States are just labeled as the United States. And then he posted this version of the map where all this land is covered in the American flag, and he captioned it by saying, "Oh, Canada." Images and rhetoric like this actually led the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, and some of their members of parliament to slam Donald Trump today and say, hey, you're not taking over Canada. Trump isn't even in office yet, and we have world leaders around the globe condemning him for his actions. This stuff, which Donald Trump thinks is a joke because he considers the presidency to be a joke, really matters. It's pushing us away from our allies as we speak. Politics and foreign policy is no game. While our enemies are strengthening their relationships, we in the United States are making them worse. That's a recipe for disaster. I don't know how MAGA defends this. Absolute insanity.
So as you know, the tariffs came through. What you don't know is Donald Trump just put this out on Truth Social, and he said we pay hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize Canada, which isn't true, but he says why? There's no reason. We don't need anything they have. We have unlimited energy, should make our own cars, and have more lumber than we can ever use. Without this massive subsidy, Canada ceases to exist as a viable country. Harsh but true. Therefore, Canada should become our cherished 51st state, much lower taxes and far better military protection for the people of Canada, and no tariffs. So he's clearly serious about this. Now here's the reality. When NAFTA came up for renewal and it was renegotiated when he was in office the last, 4 or 5 years ago, he didn't like those terms. And he doesn't like this chart. These are the 3 major importers that sell product to the US: Canada, China, Mexico. But here is their top exports by country. Again, China, Canada, Mexico. Trump made a huge mistake, and he just said that he's going to impose tariffs on the European Union. Once you add the percentages of all these exports and you add the Netherlands, Germany, United Kingdom, and then the rest of the EU countries, you're at over 50%. 50% of all the exports go to the 3 countries he just imposed heavy tariffs on, including the European Union. Now, the reason that's a problem for him is if they all get together and form a union themselves and all collectively heavily tariff the US, their economy's toast. Individually, any of these countries are going to get crushed. Mexico, Canada, and even arguably, I think we could do pretty decent, but we're not going to make a huge dent. When you involve the European Union and you involve all these countries and target their exports, where it's nearly 60% of all their exports get affected and get tariffed heavily, that trade war is gone.
So Donald Trump just said Canadians should want to be annexed by America for better health care, even though Canadians have free healthcare. Here's what he said at a press conference this morning, quote, "I would love to see Canada become the 51st state. The Canadian citizens would have much better health coverage. I think the people of Canada would like it," end quote. First of all, Canadians have universal healthcare, which is a foreign concept to us in America, but in Canada, Canadians' tax dollars actually pay for their healthcare. So Donald Trump is obviously incorrect when he says Canadians would have better health coverage in America, when in fact all that would happen is that they would lose their free healthcare and then would start getting ripped off by health insurance companies like the rest of us do in this country. Not to mention, Donald Trump has still yet to unveil his healthcare plan. So what exactly type of healthcare coverage would Canadians be receiving under your administration? Finally, Canada is an independent country that has no interest in joining America. So please, Donald, leave them and their universal healthcare alone.
If you're Canadian, do you know that here in the US, our president still thinks you're going to become our 51st state? Trump has made an offer to Canada to pay $61 billion to participate in our Golden Dome system. But he's going to make it free if Canada agrees to be the 51st state. The Golden Dome is a missile defense project, which costs $175 billion, but free if Canada becomes the 51st state. If you're Canadian, how do you feel about this proposal? Would you like to become the 51st state of the United States? Why or why not? Please leave a comment.
So in recent breaking news, Trump had a meeting with Canada. And in that meeting, he told Canada to pay $61 billion to join the Golden Dome system. Or, the next best thing, they could become the 51st state and get the Golden Dome system completely free. Because they will be part of the United States of America as the 51st state. And then what did Trump say after that? Trump stated that they are considering the offer. So my question to you Canadians, would you want to either pay $61 billion to be protected by the Golden Dome system, or do you want to become part of America as the 51st state? Or not part of America, part of the United States of America, that is. And I gotta tell you, the Americans really don't care. We actually welcome you to become the 51st state. So Canadians, let me know in the comments how you feel about this entire situation.
There was one defining moment in the State of the Union address that everybody should be paying attention to. In the middle of the State of the Union, President Donald Trump said that the role of government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. And then he asked Congress to stand if they agreed. And every Republican stood up. And almost every Democrat stayed seated. And that visual, that's the headline. Not the applause lines, not the policy details, that moment. Because the State of the Union isn't just about words, it's about priorities. And in that one shot, you saw the divide in Washington crystal clear. On one side, Republicans standing for border security and immigration enforcement. And on the other side, Democrats refusing to stand when it comes to protecting American citizens over illegal migration. Whether you support Donald Trump or not, you cannot ignore that image. After years of debate over the border crisis, immigration policy, and what happened under the Biden administration, that moment summed up where both parties stand going forward. And I'm telling you, when people look back at the State of the Union, that clip, they're going to be replaying. You need to have people that represent you and your interest, not the interests of non-citizens. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section. Appreciate you.
Canada. Do you see that Trump is out here talking crazy? Talking about he gonna make us the 51st state of America? First of all, I could have sworn there was 52 states and I'm not even American. You already seen the lack of funding for their education that they got going on. We cannot be like them. We must follow the motto. If we cannot beat the enemy, we must confuse the enemy. À ce moment-là, tout le monde doit parler le français. It doesn't matter how bad your French is. Si il ne peut pas connaître qu'est-ce que nous disons, il doit laisser nous tranquilles, okay? And if you can't speak French, everything is called Putin from now on. Get in motion.
Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force. Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. I love the Canadian people. They're great. But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it. We lose in trade deficits. We're losing massive. We don't need their cars. You know, they make 20% of our cars. We don't need that. I'd rather make them in Detroit. We don't need their lumber. We have massive fields of lumber. We don't need anything. So why are we losing $200 billion a year and more to protect Canada? And I said that to, as I called him, Governor Trudeau. I said, listen, what would happen if we didn't subsidize you? They should be a state. That's why I told Trudeau when he came down. I said, what would happen if we didn't do it? He said Canada would dissolve. Canada wouldn't be able to function if we didn't take their 20% of our car market. We don't need their cars, and we don't need the other products. We don't need their milk. We got a lot of milk. So I said to him, well, why are we doing it? He said, I don't really know. He was unable to answer the question, but I can answer it. We're doing it because of habit, and we're doing it because we like our neighbors, and we've been good neighbors. But we can't do it forever.
Yeah, folks, welcome back again, and I hope you have watched this video and you have not forgotten to subscribe to my channel. So, let's be clear here, folks. The United States and Canada are incredibly close. They share the world's longest international border. Their economies are deeply connected. I mean, millions of the people on both sides benefit from trade, benefit from tourism, and not forgetting cooperation. I mean, but being neighbors is not the same thing as being the same country. I mean, Canada doesn't need to become the 51st state to have a strong relationship with America. That isn't a must. In fact, Canada already has something incredibly valuable. And Canada has the ability to choose its own path. And that's something worth defending. When Trump talks about Canada becoming an American state, he often presents the idea as though it will be an obvious economic upgrade. Look at America. I won't say much. Look at it. You'll judge by your own. But a country is not simply a business deal. You can't look at a nation and say, you'll get lower taxes. I mean, more military protection and access to bigger economy. So why not join them? Because, take a look. Canadians aren't just calculating numbers on a spreadsheet. They are thinking about political system, their national identity, their healthcare system, their culture, which they have built for many years. I mean, their relationship with the rest of the world. And the most important thing, their right to decide their own future. That's the part that often gets lost in the conversation. Canada have economic challenges. That's obvious to any country. It may have political disagreement, obvious. It may have problems that need to be fixed. But all in all, every country has problems. I mean, the United States has problems too. We all know that. And if America truly believes in the principle of national sovereignty, then Canada's right to remain Canada should be respected. Now, look at this. Some people might say, but Canada depends on America. Okay, yes, the relationship is extremely important. But dependence and partnership are not the same thing. Canada is a major economy with enormous natural resources, including energy, minerals, agriculture, and other strategic assets. I mean, it also has one of the world's largest land masses and a population with its own highly educated workforce and industries. So, when people talk about Canada as though it has nothing to offer unless it becomes American, no. I think they are missing the bigger picture about Canada. Canada already matters. And that's precisely why the relationship between the two countries should be based on mutual respect, not on the idea that one country should absorb the other. And here's where I think things are getting even more interesting. If Canada becomes the 51st state, Canadians wouldn't simply wake up with a new flag and go back to their normal lives. I mean, they will be entering an entirely different political system which they are not familiar with. They will have to navigate American federal politics, American elections, American laws, and American political division. And let's be honest to ourselves here, folks. America is already deeply divided, being honest. So why should Canadians assume that becoming part of the system would automatically make their country better. Canada has its own challenges already, but Canadians have the right to solve their own issues by themselves. And that's why I believe Canada should stand firm, and not because America is Canada's enemy. No. It isn't. Not because the two countries shouldn't cooperate. They should. They absolutely should. But because friendship between two nations is strongest when both sides respect each other's independence. You can trade together, you can defend each other, you can share intelligence. You can cooperate on energy, you can work together on border security. You can even disagree, but still remain allies. That's what strong neighbors do. They don't need to become one country. So, when Donald Trump talks about Canada becoming the 51st state, perhaps the bigger question isn't whether Canada could become part of America. The bigger question is whether Canadians actually want it. They shouldn't be forced. And judging by Canadians' long-standing national identity and the repeated pushback from Canadian leaders, the answer appears to be no. Canada doesn't need to become America's 51st state to be successful. It doesn't need to surrender its identity to prove its friendship. It certainly doesn't need permission to remain a sovereign nation. Canada and America can be neighbors. They can be allies. They can be trading partners. But Canada can still be Canada. And honestly, maybe that's the relationship that makes the most sense to me. That's my own opinion. They are built in two independent sides, choosing to stand together. And Canada has every right to choose its own side of the border. So, folks, I've talked much, and I've given my thoughts about what I think about what Donald Trump said about Canada being its 51st state. So it's your turn, folks. What do you think? Should Canada remain completely independent, or would there actually be advantages to becoming the 51st state? Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll always remember to be respectful. So folks, until next time, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and mostly share this video to whoever thinks it might be of help. Until next time, peace, my brothers and sisters.